And thank you for staying tuned with us. Right now, we turn to our first commentary. The EFCC is asking Nigerians to come forward with information that could help recover stolen Nigerian assets hidden abroad. And there is money attached to that invitation. EFCC Chairman Ola Olukoyede says anyone who has credible information that leads to the recovery of such assets could receive between 2.5 and 5% of the value recorded. He made a statement at the Cambridge International Symposium on Economic Crime in the United Kingdom, where he was speaking about asset recovery, credible intelligence, and the importance of protecting whistleblowers. And the idea itself, it's not entirely new. The reward is part of Nigeria's existing whistleblower policy. But what makes this announcement interesting is the question of whether Nigerians are actually willing to take up the offer. Because it is one thing to say, if you know where stolen money is, tell us. It's another thing for somebody who actually has that information to decide that they are willing to speak up.
And maybe, Maria, that is because whistleblowing is not as simple as it sounds. Now, imagine that you walk somewhere and you discover that money has been moved illegally. You know the accounts involved, you know who authorized the transactions. You may even have documents that can help investigators trace the money. Now, you are being told that if your information eventually helps recover that money, you could receive a percentage of it. Stay with me. That sounds very attractive. It sounds like a very, very lucrative proposition. But before you make that call, you may have another question. What happens to me if I speak, after I speak? And I think that is part of the conversation that we cannot ignore, because the person with the information may be exposing someone who is powerful, politically connected, or financially influential. So the reward may be attractive, but the fear of retaliation could still be stronger. And these are the concerns.
Right. And we've seen why that fear exists. Take a case of Halima Shehu, who has publicly said that before her suspension as the head of National Social Investment Program Agency, she reported what she described as financial violations to the EFCC and other authorities. She said she handed over documents and information concerning transactions she considered unauthorized and questioned the movement of funds within the agency. She later said in an interview, and I quote, "I blew the whistle, but I got reprisal instead of honor." End quote. That is her account of what happened. She has also denied averting the 44 billion naira she was investigated over and said she fully cooperated with the EFCC. Now, whatever the eventual legal conclusion in that case, think about the message that a story, like this sends to somebody sitting somewhere today with sensitive information. That person may hear the EFCC chairman offering 5% or 2.5% and still ask, if I report what I know, will I be protected? Or could I eventually find myself being investigated as well? These are the concerns of Nigerians now.
In fact, that is where the issue becomes complicated, because a whistleblower is not automatically innocent simply because they provided information. Somebody can report wrongdoing and still have some connection to the transaction being investigated. They may have worked in the organization. They may have processed some of the payments. They may have signed documents. They may have been close enough to the operation to know what was happening. So the EFCC has to be able to make an important distinction. Please make it clear between the person who is providing information and the person who may have participated in the wrongdoing. But for the public, that distinction has to be clear. If I come to you with evidence of financial wrongdoing and you later discover that I had participated some way in the process, maybe unknowingly, what happens to me? Am I protected as a whistleblower? Am I treated as a witness, or can I become a suspect? Because if people do not understand where the line is, they may decide that the safest thing to do is keep quiet before you use your hand to put yourself in trouble.
Be at the right place at the wrong time, or at the wrong place at the wrong time now, because there are going to be questions. You can't just whistleblow without giving full detailed information. I can't be asked, how did you know that this money was here? And then you're going to start narrating. But then, and that may actually be one of the biggest challenges for this policy. It's been there. It's not a new one. The whistleblowing policy did not just start today. But then, the government can offer a financial incentive, but it cannot remove the fear simply by attaching a percentage to recover. But then I know that the person I'm reporting has political connection, has access to power.
And powerful people.
And powerful people as well, or has the resources to fight back. I may think twice. If I believe that my identity could be exposed, I may think twice. If I have seen other people report wrongdoing and then become, embroiled in the whole investigation, take a look at Mariam Shehu now, I may also think twice. So when Olukoyede talks about whistleblower protection, what part of his statement deserves as much attention as the monies you'll be getting, the 2.5% or the 5%? Because the real question is not just how much the whistleblower gets. The question is whether after you blow the whistle, is your whistle still going to be given back to you after you've blown it?
And will you have opportunity to blow another one?
Exactly.
Well, so this is where the EFCC needs to be very clear about what that protection actually means. Marian, there's also another thing we need to consider. The people who possess the most useful information are often the people closest to the system. They may be civil servants, they may be accountants, they may be contractors. They may be business associates. They may be people who are involved in processing transactions. Because how do you even have access to the level of information required if you are not somehow embedded in the system? There are often people who can tell investigators exactly where to look because they've seen the documents and they understand how the money moved. But that proximity can also make them vulnerable. If you know exactly where the money went, there's a good chance that people who move the money know who you are. So even when it is said to be coming from an anonymous source, because the people who move the money know exactly who and who has what sort of information, they can still trace it back to you. People may know where these assets are. They may know which companies were used. They may know which properties were purchased. They may even know which foreign accounts received the money. So you could become a millionaire if you help us recover it. That's one part of the conversation. That's what the EFCC is saying. 5%, it sounds good. Not a bad deal. But the EFCC have to also tell Nigerians, this is exactly how we will protect you, right? You cannot build a successful whistleblowing system simply by announcing a reward. You have to build confidence around the reward. People have to believe that the process is fair, that their information will be handled properly, and that they will not be abandoned once they've spoken. These are all of the major concerns.
And then if you take a look at international now, is the whistleblowing only meant for those crimes in Nigeria, or it cut across?
Or the Nigerian assets abroad.
Yes, Nigerian assets abroad. Now, if you now look at those assets abroad, I mean, it's important for EFCC to also clarify. When you talk about the assets of Nigeria abroad that we're taking abroad now, recovering an asset in another country is a very different process from recovering something sitting here in Nigeria. There are foreign laws, there are foreign courts, there are banks, there are properties, there are registries, and there are other agencies involved. The law there and the law here are not the same. So even if somebody tells the EFCC exactly where an asset is, the commission still has to establish the evidence and follow the legal process required to bring that asset back. Now, Olukoyede himself pointed to asset tracing, judicial cooperation, and credible intelligence as important factors in successful forfeiture. He also said the EFCC has forfeited more than $500 million in cash and assets to federal government over the past 3 years. So the question becomes whether the commission can consistently turn the information supplied by whistleblower into actual discovery, and the concerns of the whistleblower as to protection after the whistle has been blown. Now, if it does, if they're able to answer this, Nigerians still have another question. What happens after the recovery? All of these funds, all of these assets that are being recovered, what happens to them? Because we often hear figures attached to recovered assets, hundreds of millions of dollars, properties, aircraft, housing, cars, jewelries, and all. But the public also wants to know what happens after those announcements. Olukoyede, in his speech, cited several cases, including the forfeiture of an aircraft linked to an alleged $30 million bribery case and properties linked to former public officials. He even cited the case of Abubakar Bailami, where he says the commission had traced about 57 properties allegedly linked to the former Attorney General and secured forfeiture of 48 of them from the 57. Now, where are these properties? Where are they lying? Are they being auctioned? privately or publicly? I mean, these are significant figures. These are questions that should be asked. But when Nigerians should also be able to follow the journey of those assets, know where these are public funds. These are taxpayers' money. What was recovered and what was finally forfeited and what remains in court, what was sold, what was retained by the government, and what value has ultimately returned to the public.
Very genuine questions, very valid. And in fact, there's also the question of whether the reward itself is enough, which is in fact where we'd let you know that we have the space for just one call on this particular subject. So please do put a call across and let us know your thoughts on this. 5% sounds like a lot, especially when we're talking about assets worth millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. But if the information leads to the recovery of $100 million, for instance, we're potentially talking about millions of dollars going to the whistleblower. If it's 5%, 5% of 100 million is, $5 million. $5 million. I mean, that's a powerful incentive. So the question for you is, would you take that risk? Would you trade your anonymity and possibly your peace of mind for the possibility of receiving millions of dollars later? Let us know. 0906 202 9933. We can take just one call because we're
But we can take a lot of comments.
Yeah, I mean,
text and everything.
Just scoot over to the comment section of our YouTube video and leave your comment right there. I mean, it sounds all good. A 5% deal for whistleblowers. I mean, the whistleblower should know how their reward was determined. That's, in fact, another one again. The public should know what's happened to the remaining value. You raised some concerns about transparency earlier. So if the EFCC wants Nigerians to participate, it has to make the entire process credible, from the first report to the final recovery. And maybe we'll also talk about false information, because once you put money on the table, you will inevitably attract people who want to exploit the system. Somebody can make a false allegation against a political opponent, someone they don't like in an office. A business rival could provide misleading information about another company, and I mean, it could really go south from there. And those are some of the things that Nigerians should be looking out for.
I like that you highlighted that as well, because someone could whistleblow on a competitor and call it, I mean, my neighbor is doing so well. I think this person is involved in some very dubious, not clear means. But actually, the actual fact is that person is just doing a very legitimate business. And then you whistleblow on that person. What is the procedure to carry out, due diligence, investigation to be very clear that this person is actually proceeds from this business are coming from criminal activities, right? So, but then, like you said, are you going to trade your peace, so to say? Because it's not just to whistleblow. It's not just the phone line you're going to dial and say, I've got information, there's some cash stack up, or there's some information, there's some document I can render to you. There's a lot more than that.
If I blow the whistle, will the whistle blow back at me? Stay with us.